Okay, so with this lecture, we go back to bipolar transistor circuits. We'll begin by doing a very brief review of DC design of a bipolar transistor circuit, which is what you had done prior to the midterm. And in one lecture, we'll go through the primary ideas and principles of designing the basic DC circuit that is used in a large number of bipolar transistor amplifiers. Perhaps you did not do design before the midterm, you did analysis. So this will also work to start you on designing circuits. Alright, so uh, we'll design a circuit with a single transistor, and what we are given is a single NPN transistor, and we are told that its beta could vary anywhere between 50 and 200. We are given a single 12 volt power supply and all the resistances that are needed. And the task given is to design a circuit with this transistor biased in the active region and with a nominal collector current of 1 milliampere. The collector current variation to be within plus minus 10% as beta varies, because as beta varies the collector current would vary. That's why we say a nominal 1 milliampere, and that the base voltage must be less than or equal to 4 volts. So we are given these three conditions and we must design a circuit that meets these three conditions. Okay, so let's start the design. So the first design we'll do is we say, well, we want the transistor to be in the active mode. Therefore, we need the base emitter voltage to be about 0.7 volts, and we need the collector emitter voltage to be greater than 0.2 volts to put the transistor in the active mode. And it doesn't matter how large the VCE is. So we say, well, this is what we need. So this is a circuit we'll build. For now, let us not worry about this 0.7 volts. We are not given a 0.7 volts. We are given only a 12 volts. But for now, let us say that this is a circuit we start with. Then we ask the question, what question do we ask? We are given three specifications. The active mode is in fact the 0th specification, and there is a specification for the collector current. So go back, 1 milliamp. So what we'll want to know is what is the collector current flowing in this circuit, or more basic is what is the base current flowing. So we ask the question, what is the base current flowing in this circuit? Turns out this is not an easy question to answer. So this goes back to diode behavior. So here is a plot of diode currents as a function of the diode voltage at two different temperatures. And let us look at this graph for a minute. So blue is 30 degrees, red is 50 degrees, and what we see is at 0.7 volts, the diode current at 30 degrees centigrade is about 0.9 milliamps for this specific diode, and at 50 degrees centigrade it is about 2.4 or thereabouts milliamps. Also, if the diode voltage was, let us say, 0.69 volts rather than 0.7 volts, which is very imaginable, then also the diode current changes significantly from its value at 0.7 volts. Why does it change significantly? Because the diode current varies exponentially with the voltage. So the equation for the base current of a bipolar transistor, which is really nothing but the diode, the base emitter junction is a diode, varies as some constant times an exponential of QVB over KT, where VB is the base voltage. So it is a fundamental property of diodes that the current in the circuit is not predictable accurately if as a well-defined voltage is applied across the diodes. And there are two reasons why this is. One is because the current changes drastically because of the exponential voltage dependence. The other is as temperature changes, the current changes. And temperature changes are normal on all electronic circuits. Temperatures change very routinely from room temperature high up to 50, 60, 70 degrees centigrade, and then the current would change widely. Therefore, for both these reasons, one never ever connects a forward bias PN junction directly across a voltage source, because if one does, one never knows what the magnitude of that current will be. It is extremely unpredictable. So our design one circuit really just doesn't work. So what do? We introduce a resistance in the forward base emitter junction path. Of course, you've seen this. In fact, most of this lecture you should have seen. So I'm just revising what you already know. So now we connect a resistor and we connect the top to the 12 volts. So our question of needing another voltage source goes away. So now we can write the base current simply from the KVL around this loop. And so we'll get IB equal to 12 minus 0.7 divided by RB, 11.3 by RB. So this becomes a base current. Now this is a simple but important expression, because what this expression is telling us is that the base current now really depends on RB. And it will vary if the diode parameters vary, anything varies. What will vary is this 0.7 volts. That 0.7 may become 0.69, 0.68, 0.72, whatever. That will have a very small change in the base current, because compared to 12, especially for our 12 volts, this number is relatively small. And therefore the base current is rather well determined by putting a resistance in series with the base emitter junction. So the current will vary little with temperature or little with diode parameters. So that's good. Okay, so now we say so we ask the question, what is the collector current? So of course we want to design for a collector current of 1 milliamp. And because this transistor is in the active region, we know that IC is equal to beta IB. So we say 1 milliamp is equal to beta IB, and IB we just found out as 11.3 divided by RB. Beta for now let us assume to be 100. We are told it will vary from 50 to 200. Let's assume 100 for now. Then we substitute 100 here. We know 1 milliamp, all that, so we get a value for RB. So with this value of RB, we now have a circuit that has IC equal to 1 milliamp, and it also has VB less than 4 volts. VB is less than 4 volts, it is 0.7 volts. So we met two of the three specifications of the circuit with this circuit. What was the third one? Let us see. The third was that as the beta of the transistor varies from 50 to 200, IC must not vary more than plus minus 10%. So let us check. We have for our circuit IC equal to beta into all this, and now we found RB, a value of RB, so we substitute a value of RB. So we get IC equal to beta into 10 microamperes, because this is mega ohms. So how does IC vary as beta varies? As beta varies from 50 to 200, IC will vary from 0.5 milliamps to 2 milliamps, around its nominal value of 1 milliamp. This is a minus 50 to plus 100% variation. not anywhere near the 10% that we desire. It's of course obvious from here that IC varies directly with beta. So beta varies by from 100 or a nominal of 100 to 50 and 200. IC will vary by the same fraction, so 50% and 100%. Not good. Not good, so this is not a good enough design. As you know, this circuit is called a fixed bias circuit. A fixed bias circuit has a fixed base current. That is how the term fixed bias is defined. So we say in summary that in a fixed bias circuit, the collector current varies directly with beta, and this is not acceptable for most transistor applications. This, of course, I am adding this without any explanation for why this is not acceptable, but let us just say that for most transistor applications, what is needed is that the collector current not vary by more than about plus minus 10%. So now we have to do something to reduce the variation of IC as beta varies. So what do we do? I'm assuming you've done this already before the midterm. So you think a minute. What do we do? Okay, here is what we do. We introduce an emitter resistor. We introduce a resistor in the emitter branch. This is what we do. And with this emitter, now we reanalyze the circuit and we rewrite the equation. So again, we write a KVL from 12 volts through RB through 0.7 to RE. And I'll not go do this because I'm assuming that you've already done. So we'll just write the equation for the base current. So the base current is 12 minus 0.7 divided by, so this is IB RB and there is an IE RE, and IE is 1 plus beta IB, so that we get IB equal to all of this. 12 minus 0.7 by RB plus 1 plus beta RE. And because IC is equal to beta IB, we substitute this as IC over beta, and then beta goes on the other side, and then we take the beta down, so we get IC equal to 11.3 divided by RB by beta plus 1 plus beta by beta RE. And we assume that beta is large enough that 1 plus beta is approximately equal to beta. It's not going to make too much difference in our calculations. So we write this approximately as 11.3 divided by RB by beta plus RE. So this is what we get for IC. Okay. This is an important equation. First of all, of course, whenever we write equations, it's always good to check whether we've got it right or not. So we say, well, suppose RE was 0, which will be our fixed bias circuit. Then this equation goes back to our equation for the fixed bias circuit. So that is good. That verifies that this equation is okay. Second, now, if we make RB by beta about 10% in value of RE, then even if beta varies, the variation, the total variation in this quantity will remain about 10% of the variation in beta, because we've reduced, we've constrained the magnitude of this first term to be about 10% of RE. So let us try this. So we'll say, okay, we'll make RB by beta about 10% of RE. So RB by beta equal to RE by 10, which is of course 0.1 RE. And then we solve. So we say, okay, then we want IC equal to 1 milliamp. So we write 1 milliamp equal to 11.3 by all this. And RB by beta is 0.1 RE. And when we solve this for RE, so we'll get RE equal to 10.2 kilo ohms. Then with beta equal to 100, again our nominal value, we find RB, because we said RB by beta is 0.1 RE. So we use that to find RB. So we get RB equal to 102 kilo ohms. So in this equation for IC, now we have found values of RB and RE. We found it for a specific value of beta, but of course now let us use it to find IC as beta varies. So we say IC equal to 11.3 by 102, which is RB, by beta plus 10.2, which is RE. Now we see how IC varies with beta. So let us see. So actually I'm not, this is just a simple calculation. So you can do the calculation and let's make a table. So we make a table of beta versus IC. While we are at it, let us also find VB, because VB is a specification. VB we can see from this circuit is 0.7 volts plus IE RE. So when we find IC, we can find IE, and we know RE already, so we can find VB. So we make that table, we find that IC goes from 0.91 milliamps to 1.05 milliamps. So now IC is varying within 10% plus minus 10% or 1 milliamp. Very nice. So we met our specification of IC varying within plus minus 10% of 1 milliamp. VB is another story. Let's come back to VB just in one more slide. We make a comment before that. We note that RE, putting RE is providing negative feedback. So let us see how RE provides negative feedback. So we say this is of course just a kind of qualitative analysis. So we say, let us say the beta of the transistor increases for some reason. Then we say, well, that will cause an increase in the collector and the emitter current of the transistor. So if beta increases, the collector and emitter current increase. If the emitter current increases, the voltage drop across RE increases. So VE increases. If VE increases, the base emitter voltage will decrease. And if the base emitter voltage decreases, the collector current will decrease because the base current decreased. So the collector current decreases. So one effect makes the collector current increase, the other effect makes it decrease. And as we have seen, this is a characteristic of negative feedback. When there are two opposing effects that cancel each other out, the overall variation in that quantity will not be much for some primary variation somewhere else. So this is negative feedback. Alright, let's go back to VB here. So VB is between 10 and 11.5 volts. Our specification is VB must be less than 4 volts. Of course, maybe you are asking the question, why is this specification there in the first place? We'll discuss this later when we use the circuit as an amplifier. For now, let us just assume that we need VB to be less than or equal to 4 volts. In the circuit we've designed, VB is between 10 and 11.5 volts. So now let's think about it. What can we do? So we already saw that for our circuit, VB is equal to 0.7 plus IE RE. RE we've already fixed by the requirement of the plus minus 10% variation. IE is given to us. In fact, IC is about IE, and that is 1 milliamp. So this is fixed. This is fixed. There is nothing we can do in this circuit to change VB. There's nothing we can do. Can we? You please think about it. Can we do anything to change VB while keeping all the other specifications in place? I think we can't do, so we have to modify the circuit to get VB less than or equal to 4 volts. So let's look at a slightly high level principle involved in this. So we start the design. We started by with three specifications given to us. The current must be 1 milliamp, the variation in current must be plus minus 10%, and the base voltage must be less than 4 volts. Three independent conditions. our circuit that we have designed has actually only two independent variables, RB and RE. Nothing else is in our control. 12 volts is given to us, plus 0.7 is property of the transistor. Two variables cannot be used to satisfy three independent conditions. We have to have three independent variables. So we have to add one more resistance to this circuit so that we can basically get three equations that satisfy these three conditions. So that's what we do. So what is that circuit? So we're getting closer and closer to the circuit that we have seen before. So here is the circuit, the self-bias circuit. So instead of RB, only a resistor from VCC to the base, we have one resistor here and another from base to ground. So we have R1 and R2. In some sense, one often says that this is basically a voltage divider to generate VB from 12 volts. It doesn't matter. There are many ways of looking at what R1 and R2 are doing. But so now we have three variables. So hopefully with these three, we'll be able to satisfy the three specifications given. Now to analyze this circuit, and again I'm assuming you may have done this before. To analyze this, what we do is we'll take the the 12 volts R1, R2 and find the Thevenin's equivalent across the base, and so this is a base node and ground. So across the base node and ground, we find the Thevenin's equivalent to the left of this, kind of the line here. So we have 12 volts R1, R2. So the Thevenin's voltage is simply a voltage divider. It is R2 by R1 plus R2 of 12. That becomes a Thevenin's voltage. And the resistance is simply R1 parallel R2. So we get R1, R2 by R1 plus R2. Now this circuit in fact is very similar to the circuit just before, in which we had actually 12 volts here instead of VTH. So the equations will remain the same, only we'll replace 12 volts with VTH, which in fact is what gives us the additional degree of freedom. Okay, so let's analyze. Again, there are many ways of analyzing this circuit. The way I've done it is one of the ways, which seems to be the most simple. So we say, well, we want VB to be 4 volts. So we'll assume and design for VB to be 4 volts. Of course, our job here now is to find R1, R2, RE such that the three specifications are met. So we say VB is 4, that is one of our specifications. If VB is 4, then VE is of course 4 minus 0.7, so it's 3.3. And we say the emitter current is approximately equal to the collector current, and so it's 1 milliamp. So we say 3.3 volts, 1 milliamp current, so the resistance has to be 3.3 volts by 1 milliamp. So we get RE equal to 3.3 kilo ohms. We want to restrict IC to a variation of plus minus 10%. So as we already did, we say RB must be 1/10 of RE times beta. And again, we'll assume a nominal beta of 100, 3.3 into 100 by 10, so 33K. So we get RB equal to 33 kilo ohms. RE equal to 3.3, RB equal to 33 kilo ohms. Okay. Then what do we want? We have to find R1, R2. So we say, well, VTH is VB plus IB, RB. So VTH is RB, IB plus VB. IB is IC by beta. And we know everything here. So we get VTH equal to 4.33 volts. So we get VTH equal to 4.33 volts, RB equal to 33 kilo ohms, and we have expressions for these. So we can solve these two to find R1 and R2. So if you solve, then you'll get R1 equal to 91 kilo ohms and R2 equal to 52 kilo ohms. So this becomes our circuit. 91 kilo ohms, 52 kilo ohms, 3.3K. So now we have actually come up with a design. Now, it is very, very important whenever you design anything in life, I would say, it is extremely important that you verify that the design is correct. Because more often than not, you would have made some mistake, or you would have um, uh, overlooked some condition, and you will come up with a design and that will actually not meet the specifications given. So once you get the design done, then you analyze the circuit. You analyze this circuit to find whether all the conditions required are met. So I am not doing this. Please do it for this circuit. Analyze this circuit as homework and basically find this IC and VB for this circuit. When you do, you should find that for beta 50, 100, 200, IC is 0.911, 1.05 and VB is 3.76, 4.19. So IC is 1 milliamp nominal, it varies by less than plus minus 10%. VB is 4, of course, although the specification was 4, it is going to not remain exactly 4 as beta varies, but that is okay. It is not varying much, which is what is desired. Of course, you could argue with me and say that VB was required to be less than 4 volts. VB is going above 4 volts here, and therefore this is not an excellent design. And I would agree, this is not exactly as the specifications required. If you want to design a circuit where VB stays strictly below 4 volts, what you'll have to do is, looking at these numbers, you say that, well, we designed for this nominal 100 and we said VB was 4 volts for beta equal to 100 and IC equal to 1 milliamp. But when we do that, it goes up to 4.2 for a higher value of beta. So if then we design for VB to be 3.8 here. So let's go back. Where is that VB? So yeah, we started with VB equal to 4. So to make an excellent design, what one would do is, we'll say let this VB be 3.8 and then redo these numbers. So then we come back here, then this will be 3.8 and this will be just about 4 volts. So that will be I would say, even a better design than what we have come up with here. But this is good enough. So I'm going to leave it at this. Alright, so this completes our design. By the way, did you notice, or do you notice, that compared to a circuit similar to this that you must have seen before the midterm, there is no collector resistance here. In fact, we did not need a collector resistance to design for the specifications that were given to us. There is no RC. The question, of course, we ask is, why do we need an RC in this circuit? Why was there an RC, assuming that you did see an RC before in this circuit? Of course, to answer that question, we must first ask ourselves, what is the purpose of this circuit? Because we started this lecture saying, well, design a circuit to meet a certain set of specifications. But what is the purpose that this circuit will be put to? So what is the answer? Of course, the answer is that we are building a circuit that will be used as an amplifier. So the answer to the question whether RC is needed or not depends on how this circuit will be used as an amplifier. So as an amplifier, of course, a circuit would have an input signal and an output signal. The output of a BJT amplifier is taken either at the collector or at the emitter. We'll see this subsequently. Right now, this is just information. If the output of the amplifier is taken at the collector, only then is RC required. If it is taken at the emitter, then RC is not required. Of course, why this is so, again, we'll see probably in the next lecture or the lecture after that. As an aside, independent of this discussion, we also note that the input signal can either be a voltage or a current, and the output can also be either a voltage or a current. In fact, independently, the input can be voltage or current when the output is a voltage, and input can be voltage or current when the output is a current, and so on. Okay, so suppose we say that, well, the output is taken at the collector, then we will place a collector resistance. So now we have one more degree of freedom, and if we have to find the value of RC, we would have to be given one more specification or a condition. Usually for a DC design, this specification is the DC collector voltage desired in the circuit. So for example, we can say that we want the DC collector voltage to be 6 volts. If this is a requirement, then we say RC is equal to just Ohm's law, VCC minus VC by IC, 12 volts minus 6 volts by 1 milliampere, and so we get a value of RC to be 6 kilo ohms. Alright, and that would complete our design with RC. Alright. So that is the end of this lecture. Next time we'll start AC analysis of a BJT amplifier. Okay.